Walk into a Mazda showroom today and ask to buy a Super Mini and you'll be presented with two choices. The first one is this. This is the Mazda 2. This generation of Mazda 2 has actually been on sale since 2015. It was facelifted in 2019 and it has just been mildly updated for 2023. The other Mazda Super Mini you can buy is actually a completely different car, different chassis, different powertrain, not even a single nut or bolt is shared with this car. And so do you know what Mazda decided to call it? The Mazda 2. Okay, Mazda added the word hybrid to the end of the new Yaris-based 2 to reflect that really it's a Toyota in disguise. But even so, this unimaginative naming strategy does seem potentially rather confusing for customers. In today's CarGurus UK review, we are not focusing on that Mazda 2, we are focusing on this Mazda 2, although slightly confusingly, this one is also a hybrid of sorts because it has mild hybrid technology, unlike the full hybrid system that you get in the Mazda 2 hybrid, also known as the Toyota Yaris. And with that all cleared up, I think I need to sit down. Not that this is perhaps the best place to choose to sit actually, because as has always been the case with this generation of Mazda 2, it's not the roomiest of Super Minis in the back. So to give you some context, driver's seat set for me, I'm 5'11", and headroom is just okay. I can just about hit the roof there. Legroom again, it's just okay. Lots of room for my feet under the seat, but it is a bit narrow here. If you're going to get three across, it is going to be tight, and also big transmission tunnel in the floor there. So yeah, something like a Fabia or a Dacia Sandero is going to offer you more space in the back. Same goes for the boot space, it's just not the roomiest anymore. So it's 280 litres, which funnily enough is almost the same as you get in the other Mazda 2, also known as the Toyota Yaris. To give you some perspective on that, these days a Corsa has a 309 litre boot, I think, and a Skoda Fabia, that's 380 litres. So the Mazda 2's is on the small side for 2023. You also still get this fairly narrow opening. There's still a big step down to the floor, no false floor either, that you can raise. And while you can fold these back seats, it leaves a really big step in the floor. So overall, just not the most practical of Super Minis. Now, while we're here at the rear of the Mazda 2, let's take a couple of minutes just to look at some of the design changes for the 2023 model year. So one of them is this paint, and I'm embarrassed to say I can't remember the name of it, but it's kind of like a bluey grey, looks really nice. Rear lights, nope, they're the same. Can you spot any others? It does look very similar, doesn't it? This badge, that's the same. Rear bumper now is body coloured below this black strip here, as it used to be all black. No, the big change for the 2023 model year Mazda 2 is this down here, this asymmetrically placed colour accent tab. What a thing of beauty, eh? And it doesn't end there either, because look, come and see this. This is wild. Mazda doesn't just stop there. It's put an asymmetrically placed colour accent tab at the front as well. Wow. There's also a new grille, which is either a honeycomb pattern like on this Homura spec car, or on centerline and exclusive line, the bottom half of the grille is blanked off for a more modern look. The asymmetrically placed colour accent tab on those trims is also yellow rather than red. So centerline and exclusive line are sort of the posher ones, whereas the Homura and Homura Aka, this is a Homura Aka, they are the sportier styled ones. So on these you get 16-inch alloy wheels, you get gloss black mirror casings, gloss black antenna, and on the Homura Aka, the top spec one like this, you also get a black roof. So the finish of the interior varies by spec. So if you go for a centerline or exclusive line, think it's more like contrasting bright colours around here, whereas the Homura and the Homura Aka are a sportier look like on the outside. So contrasting red stitching, red bits on the seats. In this top spec Homura Aka, the seats are half leather. They're also heated, and you get a heated steering wheel as well, and you get this sort of suede panel on the dash, which is really nice. And generally the Mazda 2's interior has stood the test of time really well. I know this is a top spec model, but it does feel really quite nice in here. You get little padded bits here, rest your legs against. This isn't soft touch, this dash, but the finish is textured, so actually it looks like it's soft touch. And equipment levels generous as well, right across the range. So all Mazda 2s come with this 7-inch infotainment screen. This includes wireless CarPlay, wired Android Auto and nav as standard. All Mazda 2s get climate control via these nice simple chunky controls down here, all get cruise control, all get rear parking sensors. So yeah, like I say, it's a well-equipped little car. So Mazda hasn't offered a diesel engine in the 2 for a good while now, so the only engine available is a 1.5 litre non-turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol. It's an engine that was revised for the 2022 model year to improve efficiency, and it's just carried over unchanged for 2023. You can have 3 different power outputs, so there's 75 horsepower, 90 horsepower or 115 horsepower. But you can't have every power output with every trim level. And I can't quite remember exactly what all the different ones are, but suffice to say, if you want the Homura spec, then you have to get a 90 horsepower output or above, and if you want the 75 horsepower, you have to go with the centerline specification. With CO2 emissions in the 90 horsepower car from 107 grams per kilometre and fuel economy of up to 60 miles per gallon in official tests, this is a very frugal little car. In the real world, 50 miles per gallon is easily achievable, and that's helped because this is a light car. It's just under 1100 kilograms, and being light also helps make the most of the engine's performance. So in this test car we have the 90 horsepower engine. It has about 111 pound-foot of torque, so it's not quick by any stretch of the imagination, and you do need to work it quite hard to make progress. So that's one of the things about the Mazda 2 you're going to notice if you've driven other superminis with turbocharged engines. You do notice that you don't have that low to mid-range strength that you get with the turbo engine. You have to work this. You can have the 90 horsepower car with an automatic gearbox if you want. We'd say get the manual, because this is a really nice manual gearbox, great shift, really satisfying to use. Mazda say it's engineered a bit of the MX-5's feel into here, and it's not quite as crisp as an MX-5's gearbox, but it is very good by any measure. This is a really nice gearbox to use. Just as the engine has been carried over unchanged, so too has the chassis. Not that we're complaining. Now, when car reviewers like me are looking for a benchmark for a brilliant handling supermini, we are almost guaranteed to mention the Ford Fiesta. But do you know what? This Mazda 2, it's not ever so far behind. This is a really, really good, fun little car to drive. The chassis feels really alert, really responsive. The steering is beautifully weighted, actually. It's got a bit of weight to it. It's not just all sort of light and unresponsive. It responds nicely. And because the engine isn't turbocharged, you do find yourself having to work it. And that all just combines to make it quite an involving little driver's car. It reminds me a little bit of the Suzuki Swift in that regard. On the downside, it is a little bit noisy in here. So there's quite a bit of noise being kicked up by the tyres. The engine, when you, of course, have to work it to make progress, can get a bit noisy, a bit boomy. And I would also say that these seats are a little bit on the narrow side, so if you have a larger frame, you might find that long distance comfort is perhaps not the Mazda 2's forte. The other thing to bear in mind if you do go for one of these sportier models on the 16-inch wheels is that the ride can be a little bit bumpy at times. But around town, as you'd expect, the Mazda 2 is brilliant, quite frankly. Visibility is really good. The controls are all nice and light at town speed. Of course, it's a very small car, so it's just really easy to nip in and out of traffic, park in small spaces and all that kind of stuff. I will reiterate though, because this is an important point about this car, that compared with a Skoda Fabia or a Dacia Sandero, it is noticeably smaller in here. If you can live with that though, I would say that the Mazda 2 is still a very recommendable small car. Speaking of the Sandero, I had a bit of a whinge about that car in our recent review related to how its price had ballooned to £14,000 to £15,000, which in turn meant Dacia was at risk of losing its cheap and cheerful USP. This Mazda 2 costs from £17,750, so it's a good chunk more than a Dacia Sandero, but it is a better car. Is it £2,500 to £3,000 better? Well, if you don't need the Sandero's extra space, then yes, I would say it is. It's also a bit cheaper than many of its other rivals, so the Vauxhall Corsa, the Hyundai i20, the Seat Ibiza. In fact, it's only really the Suzuki Swift that still undercuts it, other than the Sandero, of course. And so while the Mazda 2 is undoubtedly getting on a bit, and while we would say you do miss having a turbocharged engine like you were getting some of its other rivals, it's still fundamentally a good car and therefore still worth considering. Or of course, if you prefer to buy a used one, then you can head over to CarGurus.co.uk, where you'll find plenty of really good used Mazda 2s from top rated dealers. And if you would like to see our review of the Dacia Sandero to see how that fares, then just click the link.